Today's video is an excerpt from a BlogTalk show that I did in August of 2010. It's been removed from the BlogTalk server, so this is now the sole version of this very important discussion that I also had Dr. Joyce Morley Ball on with me. She's a psychotherapist down in Atlanta who I would have on the show pretty frequently to help me have a more professional kind of spin on some things that had to do with the human psyche and the mind. I'm sad to say that in the 7 years since this show was done, nothing much has changed as far as dealing with pedophiles and child molesters go. If anything, we're seeing more of them because of the widespread use of the internet. I think this is, I can't even express how important it is to get this kind of information out into the hands of single parents, single mothers, and single fathers. I believe that a lot of men think, if they have their children, if they have sons, that their children are immune to it or prevented. You don't understand, my brothers. Some of your friends are just itching to get a hold of your son. So don't think that it's that your boys are molestation proof. As for the girls, that is the primary object of interest for pedophiles. From infancy through the teens, your children are at risk. I believe that all parents should really take note of this and I mean really think about the things that the doctor and I discussed on this broadcast. Is highly important. You cannot go through life with your head up your ass when it comes to your children and trusting the men that you, just because you screwing them, you think that they're trustworthy. That don't mean shit. That means nothing. Sometimes it's the kids' own fathers that's doing the stuff to them, grandfathers, uncles, people that they have blood ties to that are supposed to be there protecting them. So when you bring in some complete stranger that you calling your man, your boyfriend, your nigga of the moment, he has no ties to your children, no loyalty to them whatsoever. So if you thinking that you can trust this man alone with your kids or in rooms behind closed doors, where you, even if you're in the house taking your kids places and stuff like that, you're a fool. That's what I'm gonna tell you. It's better to be safe than sorry. Don't let your kids go nowhere. If you're not there, don't let them spend the night nowhere. But you'll hear the details as we go through the show. I can't really say I hope you enjoy it, but I do hope that you learn something. Deb Cooper signing out. Tonight I felt the need to delve into something that is extremely sensitive, thought-provoking, somewhat shocking, but very, very important due to the fact that the African American community has such high numbers of single-parent homes. There are a lot of single women living with children that they have without their father. What does this mean for this show? It means that these women are dating. They're dating and they're bringing men that are not their children's father into the home and around those children. Now, I'm not going to tell you not to date. Don't get me wrong. Don't think that that is the message that's being delivered here, because it's not. The message is, if you're going to date with intelligence, ladies. Date with the eye out to protect the innocence of your children, because we are living in a world full of creepy weirdos, pedophiles, perverts, and child molesters and child killers. And many cases of these types of events are happening in the news. I did a quick Google search because I just wanted to get, just kind of find out what was going on out there. And the results were shocking. How many boyfriends are being charged with murder and assault, sexual abuse, and rape of women's children. And these women, every one of them says, "Oh my God, he seems so nice. I never thought he would do anything like this. I trusted him." And I'm wondering, if you've been dating somebody only 2 or 3 months, what is it that exactly are you trusting? You don't even know this fool. A lot of these women are living with these guys already, and some of them are even pregnant by the fool with with another child, a man they barely know. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. I have my special guest, my fallback girl,
Dr. Joyce Morley Ball, psychotherapist out of Atlanta, that will be on the show tonight discussing this with you from the professional viewpoint. What's the mentality of these women and what is the mentality of the men, and how we as people, you're going out, you're trying to date. Of course you're trying to date. You want to have someone to love you. The other relationship didn't work out, the marriage, you divorced, whatever. You want to have someone to love you, but you got to choose smart, ladies. It's too many of you just being dumb and overly trusting with these men that you know absolutely nothing about, and it's putting your children at risk. So the call-in number, if you have a question or comment or a story you'd like to share with us, is 347-327-9215. That's 347-327-9215. Press 1 on your keypad, and I will be happy to take your call. Let's see, Dr. Joyce, is this you?
This is me. How are you, Deborah?
Girl, I'm fine. I'm so happy you were available to help me navigate through this entirely just way too tough subject.
It is. It is a critical subject. It is one that I commend you for taking on. I think too often, Deborah, we don't want to talk about the realities of things that are going on around us. And as long as we don't talk about it, it becomes worse. We need to talk about it and be able to find some ways for us to be able to actually hit this subject and see what we can do to help single mothers to be able to say that, hey, sometimes you may have to be by yourself if you're going to put your children at risk.
Yeah, and I was like I went through the internet, and I'm looking at, the story after story of these single moms and the boyfriends. And one thing I noticed is that it seems like the danger age for children seems to be between 18 months and 2 years. Have you noticed that?
I've noticed that, and that's a critical age because what most men who are pedophiles are just sickos. And my thing is, once they find themselves at that place, it's very difficult to rehabilitate someone like that. The reason they choose children at that age, because rarely can those children talk. They cannot actually protect themselves. They cannot tell someone what's really going on. And if they were to say something that someone is bothering them, then 9 times out of 10, someone's not going to believe them because it's like, oh, that's just a kid. It's just a little baby. It's a toddler. So how much is that toddler going to know? So that man is actually believing that mom is not going to believe the child and that he can get away with it because no one is going to be able to understand. Their language is not completely formed. But I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and I guarantee you if something were going on, she would be able to tell us. And we've got to learn to listen to what children are saying.
I agree. Well, tell me a little bit about, because, the stories I was reading, it seemed to be children's crying. The crying that seemed to be a trigger point for men. What's going on with that seems to push these guys over the edge?
Well, the thing about it, Deborah, I think what we have to realize is that they're already over the edge. They were over the edge when the woman got with them. Most of these men do not want to deal with children. They want to be with the woman, but they don't want the package that comes with that woman. And that's what most women need to recognize. You cannot meet a man on Monday and start living with him on Wednesday or Thursday or Sunday of the next week and think that everything is okay. You don't have enough information. Most of these men are not looking for a family. It is easier, seems, that most women can go from 1 to 2 or 3 or 4 and have a man and his children to be okay. Most men, not all men, and so we're not generalizing here, but there's so many men out there, and especially African-American men have difficulty taking care of somebody else's child. There's so many of them, sadly to say, there's some great men out there, and I most certainly don't want anyone to get us wrong. There's some great men out there, great men who are rearing their children by themselves, great men who want to take care of their children. Sometimes the mother not allowing them to do it, and then they wind up with these half guys who are not willing to do anything, a piece of men. But a lot of them don't want to take care of their own. They most certainly don't want to take care of anybody else's child. And that's something that women are not making sure of. When you get with these men, if they got their own children somewhere and they're not taking care of, what makes you think they're going to take care of yours? And so they get there, they don't want to hear the crying. It's not the crying, it's the fact that they don't want to be responsible. So the crying is not the issue. It's usually that child has gotten to that point where that child is acting out, because that's what children do. They cry when they can't talk to you. And so oftentimes the child is probably crying because he's been doing something all along. And children can sense when there is someone in their presence who doesn't mean them any good. And mom is going to make them, she wants a daddy so badly. And what she don't recognize, anyone can be a daddy. What she needs to be trying to get is a father for those children.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that too, because you talk to guys, and there's a great concern with young women, especially in the African American community where there's so many single parent homes. Why is it that these women are so anxious to bring their children around these men that are relative strangers? I've heard some of the guys saying, the women he'll come pull up to the house to pick her up for a date, and she want to bring the kids. What is that?
Because society perpetuates this myth that if there's not a wholeness, if there's not a mother, father, and the children, and the picket fence, the white picket fence, and all this, that is not complete. That's not a family. A family is constituted if two people can be a family. It's the relationship that exists. And so oftentimes this woman is so needy herself. She believes that if she can bring this child along and have this child to be a part of whatever is going on, that she's going to be this family, and she can give the outside world the belief that everything is going great. Look at what we're doing. I finally got me somebody. But she doesn't know anything about this man. Like they used to say, she don't know him from Adam.
Wow. And what is it that you think, what is causing the blind spot here? Because there are some women that are just very astute and able to discern that the situation is not right. As I call it, her spidey senses go off. Whereas other women just seem to be completely oblivious to dangers that, to me and people like me, are just blatant risks. I mean, the guy's just screaming, pervert, 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 and they just don't see it. They don't get it. What do you think is causing that blind spot for these ladies?
Low self-esteem. These women are looking for someone to validate them, someone to approve of them, someone to accept them, and they don't realize that until you validate yourself, approve of yourself, and accept yourself, you can't expect anybody to be able to do that. Most of these women, Deborah, are walking around with a symbol on their forehead that says needy, a big N that says needy. So when you're saying you're needy, only thing they're going to attract are the greedy.
Wow. Well, listeners, if you would like to share a situation that you have encountered with a gentleman like this, or maybe just escaped from or experienced yourself as a child, we would love to hear your story. The number to call is 347-327-9215. Press 1 on your keypad. I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts, especially if you have any tips on how you were able to recognize one of these not quite right folks before they had access to your children. One of these guys, it's one thing that I noticed is that a lot of the crimes tend to be things where the men actually kind of thought it out. Now, for instance, this one case that happened in Philadelphia earlier this year, February of this year, this guy killed a baby boy that he was watching by soaking a rag in Drano and rubbing it on the baby's skin.
Wow.
Now, this baby was 20 months old, and it was, again, a boyfriend. And so this, and there are other instances of, other cases where there seemed to be a lot of premeditation involved in it, or the abuse was over such a long period of time that the child finally succumbed to his or her injuries. So what is going on, do you think? And, I know you don't know, you haven't interviewed these guys, but can you just give us a little idea of what kind of things might be going on in the head of an individual like this?
When you find someone like that, Deborah, as I said before, it's already in them. It's a part of this person's makeup. This didn't just happen overnight. And that's one of the things that women have to recognize. Too often what we want to do is change people. People do not change, and you've heard me say that many times before. People grow. They grow through having awareness, insight, and understanding of what's going on with them, but in order to change their behaviors. These men, this is a part of their makeup. It's like you asking a crackhead to actually stop using crack overnight, and there has been no treatment. And women are believing that if they can get these men with them, they can make them all over, they can change them, they can make them be somebody different. And what you will find is they're not going to be any different, because this is the way this man is. This is who he is. And women don't want to deal with that reality that this is truly who this man is. So they already have a plan. They were already that way. And so when they get in, it's like taking someone with plaid pants and flowered shirts and thinking because you take them in your house that they're going to become different. They do not become any different. I mean, you can take the man out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the man. So that man, 9 times out of 10, is going to wear those same plaid pants, those same flowered shirts, and you'll wonder what in the world was going on. He was wearing plaid and flower when you met him. He's going to wear plaid and flower while you're with him. And that's what women need to understand. So they're thinking that this man is going to be different, but it was already in his mind. He's a pervert from day one, and he's going to be a pervert. So his thought process is to be able to try to get over on people, do whatever he possibly can, and to believe that things are going to be different. When he gets somewhere, the woman is thinking he's going to be different. He's not going to be any different. He's not going to be any different.
Gotcha. Well, we got a caller here. Let's see what this caller has to say. Area code 646. What's your question or comment for Dr. Joyce?
Yes, I just wanted to say that while we were talking about, the people that the women date, we also maybe should mention that a lot of times we have to watch the relatives too, male relatives.
Oh, yes.
That sometimes, we think just because someone is related to us that they may, have well intentions for the children, and we will unknowingly open ourselves up and be vulnerable to them because they're related to us, and they can also be a threat as well.
That's
so
true.
Just wanted to make sure we mention that, because a lot of times, yes, kids are harmed by boyfriends, and sometimes they're molested by relatives, male relatives who I'm going to run to the store and leave my little boy or girl with uncle or cousin, and just because someone is related doesn't mean that they can't, have nefarious intentions toward kids.
That's very true.
Very true.
Yep.
Very true.
Okay.
Well, one issue that's come up, some of the guys in the chat room are just worried about us discussing the female pedophiles. What would you say, in your professional opinion, is the ratio of female pedophiles and child murderers to male?
Well, I think a lot of times what happens is that the male utilizes the female to be able to actually lure the children to them. There are female pedophiles. As I said from the onset, I most certainly don't want us to categorize every male out there as being a pedophile. But there are too many. One is too many. And there are most certainly, as domestic violence, there are many more men who are pedophiles that are going to be women who are pedophiles. But there are women, just as men, who actually will lure kids, who will sexually molest them, and as the caller just said, that is actually in the family. So it goes on all the time, but the ratio of men to women is a lot greater. So you're looking probably at 3 to 1, or even greater than that, as far as men pedophiles compared to women pedophiles. We just don't find as many. We do have them, and they probably go unreported. And what I find with women, when women are actually pedophiles, what you will find is it manifests itself later in life, because that woman is usually the caretaker. There are women, mothers, and I knew a case in New York where there was a mother, her son was an adult, and he was still having sex with his mother. His mother was still having sex and making him come in the room, and he finally killed his mother because he could not go with the shame any longer.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get some more calls going here. Callers, if you'd like to discuss your issue or you have questions about how to recognize a pedophile before he gets your child, the number to call is 347-327-9215. Press 1 on your keypad, and we'll take your call live on the air. I think, there was a case up here in California, in Northern California, where this guy got out on the side of the road, and he had his little son, and he just started beating the kid like right on the side of the road. People tried to get him off the baby, and he beat them up and kept right on beating on the kid until they got the child to, the deaf sheriff's deputies ended up killing the father to make him stop beating the child. But this was right on the side of the road in full view of everyone. And I just couldn't figure out, what was his problem and why he was so angry, just so angry. And then it came out later, he was saying that he thought that the child was was the demon, was a demon or Satan or something, and he was, had to kill it. But just, what do you think is one of the issues that a woman might? Is there something that a woman can see in advance? Something that might, warn her that this guy has some issues that you should keep him away from your children. Do you have any tips in that direction?
Surely, if you get with this man, first of all, she doesn't know enough about him. You need to get a history of this man. You need to find out about his background, his family of origin, mom, dad. What was his relationship like with his mother? You need to do a background check. You need to have a police report done. You need to have a background check to be able to say not only with as far as pedophiles, but rape cases. Does he have a history of any type of a criminal record? Has he molested before? Has he raped before? Has he been in prison before? Is he on America's Most Wanted? Those sorts of things like that. Did he just enter the country? And not to say just because people came in, you don't know enough about someone who's just entering the country. So you need to know, is this person a citizen? Is this person just moved to your state from another state? Is this person just on the job? Where did he come from? What is his origin? The other thing is you begin to look at, how is he treating you? Does he have other children? What's the reason he's not with his former wife or the girlfriend? What happened to the other children? Because there have been families, and there was a case many years ago, a guy from the Midwest moved to the Northeast, and he had killed 2 families, went and had another family, and he was on city council. He was doing well, an upstanding citizen, and he had this history behind him. So a lot of, if that child, that man wants to be with your children all the time, he's ready and always want to have your especially your daughter, sitting on his lap. But even your son, and I think too often what we don't recognize and we think about is that men who are pedophiles, they will bother boys too. My godson, who is now in his 20s, sadly to say, his mother died, some years back in 1995, but his mom moved in a man, and I remember saying to her, you don't know too much about this guy. And he was at my church, and I would do workshops on Saturdays, and this guy would be up there, and he always wanted to bother the girls. So my concern was what he was doing with the girls. And I remember saying to my pastor, who has since died, and I said to him, Pastor, I'm concerned about this guy. Every Saturday I'm up here with these children. He's always hanging with the children. He always wants to play with the children. This is a grown man. Why does he want to play with the children? And when my godson's mother started dating him, I remember saying to her, be careful. There's something about that guy. He's always playing with children. He always wants to be in the midst of children. I was more concerned about the daughter, did not think about my godson, who was 6 years of age at the time, and come to find out this guy had spent time in prison, Deborah, for molesting children, boys, and he was having actual anal sex with my godson at the age of 6.
Oh, no.
Yes, this is real. This is a real story. And my godson today is confused. He's mixed up. He's in his 20s. He's had all sorts of problems, and he's also been accused of molesting children.
Do you think that's a typical response for people that have been molested themselves to kind of reenact what happened to them out with other people?
Oh, surely. They will. Many of them will act out that behavior with someone else because they believe it's normal. And then oftentimes they're afraid to tell anyone because of the fact that they believe that they are the problem. And what the perpetrator will often do is threaten them and use the fact that they did something wrong, make them believe they did something wrong, and tell them no one is going to believe them, no one is going to listen to them. One of the things I did when I remarried and had my children and had a stepfather, I said to them from day one, I don't care who it is. If this man decides that he ever touches you all inappropriately, but I knew him quite well, and I said, but still, there was the reality. And I should say to them, I'm going to believe you first, and don't let anybody tell you that I'm not going to believe you, because usually what the perpetrator would tell the children is, you're going to be in trouble if you tell, no one is going to believe you, and I'm going to harm you. They threaten them. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at most of the cases like that, that's what happens. The children are fearful of what the consequences will be. So when my daughters became older, they all said to me that was something we always knew, that if someone ever did anything, and especially their stepdad, we could come to you. You would believe us. And I think too often what we need to do as mothers is to be able to see that you can get a man anytime, but you cannot reconstruct the emotional and psychological damage that's done to your child by a pedophile. And if he or she doesn't kill them.
What do you think is, this is just so mind-boggling to me. I just have such a hard time with this, but what do you think is the likelihood that a mother would, say the child did tell her that she would not believe the child? Is that a frequent response?
To the desperate and the lonely woman, yes. To that woman who believes that she won't have anyone, to that woman who believes that she is not worthy herself, to that woman who's afraid that if she lets this piece of a man go, that she won't have anyone. So 9 times out of 10, she's so afraid of being alone, she's so desperate of having somebody that she turns out looking for somebody and winds up nobody, that she will not believe her child and put that man over her child. And see, too often what we do too, when we start letting men move in with us, you shouldn't be having these different men over your children. If you want to have sex with somebody, go to a hotel. If he can't afford to pay for you to go somewhere, you don't need to be with him in the first place. So that man that will be there and trying to get with you, and your children are right there and hearing everything that's going on, something is wrong with that picture. And so you need to let your children know, listen, I'm going to keep you safe. And too often women who are desperate don't worry about safety. They don't even worry about their own safety. It's like, what can I get? Because women go to bed for a lifetime. Maybe if I go to bed with him, he'll want me even more, and I don't even care about the children. I'm just looking for me a man. They don't even worry about the results. They don't realize how needed they are, and realize that as sure as you're needed, you're going to attract the greedy.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, because I'm looking at a lot of the cases I read, the men had been in prison. And these women got with the guys, and the guys ended up molesting not their girls, but their boys.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So is this something that a red flag? If a man has been in prison for a number of years, a woman should be even extra careful?
I think she's careful with anyone, Deborah. Not just, we don't want to say that everybody's been in prison, but then you've got to realize if a man has been in prison for quite some time, then what he's been up against. Has he been with someone else, that person where he has been violated, or did he violate somebody else? Because prison is a whole nother culture. And so you've got this person coming out trying to reintroduce himself, reindoctrinate himself into a society that is foreign to him at this time. And so if that boy is there, we can't say that every prisoner is going to come out and do that. But I think you should be just as careful as you would with anybody else. I just think in 2010, anybody who would come into your life and you don't have a history of them, you don't know what's going on, they are going to be suspect.
Well, it's really funny because I remember one time, you know how you just go to a coffee shop and you're sitting there, and I'm looking in a local newspaper, and on the back they have personal ads. So I'm kind of flipping through them just for entertainment value. And I see one where this guy says, I'm looking for somebody, and, children are okay. And, if you have girls between the age of 10 and 14, this and that. And it was basically like a recipe for his preferred age group, gender, everything. And I'm looking at this, and I could see what it was. This is somebody advertising for some stupid woman that has kids in this age group so that he can have his, freaky fantasies fulfilled. So I pick up the phone. I called the newspaper. I said, "Why are you running this pedophiles ad on your newspaper?" And they hadn't even noticed that that's what it was. But when I pointed it out to them, they were like horrified and said, "Oh my God, we didn't read it the way that you read it." I was like, he's more time talking about what child he wants access to than he does what the woman should be like. 3/4 of the ad was filled with information about the children, not the woman that he's seeking.
Wow.
And it was just so blatant, I just couldn't believe it. And another time I met this guy, and I'm talking to him on the phone. You know how you first meet people, you talk to them on the phone. And I hadn't told him I had a daughter. I mean, it really was none of his concern because I didn't know this dude.
Right.
And he heard her talk to me in the background. Dr. Joyce, he perked up like a little rabbit. Oh, you have a child? I said, yeah. Boy or girl? Well, now I'm like kind of like, well, maybe I'm just being oversensitive. I said, it's a daughter. Oh, and he just wouldn't let it go. Then finally he actually said this to me. Well, if you ever want to go hang out with your friends and you don't have a sitter, I'll watch her for you.
And you're supposed to be that crazy, huh?
Girl, I'm not even going to tell you what I said to you because I don't want you to know me like that.
And sometimes you have to go there. You have to say what you have to say in order to protect your children. But do you know that, Deborah, there are women out there who are so desperate? I had a case like that when I used to work in the school system. And the mother, because she needed money and she wanted a man, she was letting the man sleep with her children in exchange for more money. So
what?
Yeah, oh, yes. And it became a real case with the school because by the time we found out, and I was a therapist dealing with these girls and the family, and so they arrested the mother and the guy. As a matter of fact, the guy worked at the school. So she would leave. He was a janitor or a custodian at the school, and she would have him to watch the children after school in the building, and he would take them in one of the rooms, and he would molest them after school. And then he would go to her house at night, and then he'd come at the house, and he would bother them at the house at night.
What the heck?
Yes.
Oh.
So again, this desperation with these women. Again, this lack of validation, lack of approval, low self-esteem. Trying to get with somebody, and they want with anybody who turns out to be nobody. That they're not doing their homework. They're not taking their time. Be patient. And we're not saying to single mothers don't date. We're not saying to them be by yourself, because I tell a lot of mothers, you can't put your life on hold as you're rearing children, because when they get up, they're going to date who they want. They're going to be with who they want.
Yeah, they are.
So you need to take some time out for yourself. But just be careful as you're doing it. Check to see what's going on. Someone who's so eager to babysit like this guy want to babysit your daughter, why would you want to? I don't even know you like that.
Exactly, but I'm supposed to just be all happy to run the streets and have you watch my daughter? I don't think so.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think so. And he got told, too. Ooh.
That's right. No, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I think that as we look at this, is women looking and saying, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to be cautious. It's not that important. The same way, whatever happened with that woman, with the father of those children, that it did not manifest, then it should be looking at what are the lessons that I learned from that first situation or relationship that I was in. What did I learn from that makes me be cautious, that I should, take my time. Let me take my time. Let me just date. But your children should, I just answered this question for a magazine the other day. Your children should not be introduced to this man right off anyhow. I mean,
what's a good time frame? What do you think? What would you say is a good guideline, basic guideline for when you should introduce a man to your children?
Months down the road. If it takes you a year, that's fine. It doesn't have to be right away. You should not bring this man. He doesn't need to be sitting around your child. He doesn't need to be sitting on your couch. He doesn't need to be holding your children. It could be months down the road. You need to find out more about him. You need to get to meet family members. And only after it's serious, because you can't do this with everybody. You need to see are you really ready to be a part of this man's life? Is he truly ready to be a part of yours? Or is it just about the bed? If it's that, then you don't need to have him anyhow. Go get your kicks somewhere else and leave that brother where you found him. But you don't need to bring him to your house. You don't need to have your children going to dinner with him. Go to dinner with him by yourself if that's what you want to do. But until you are totally satisfied with what you're finding out, that you're looking at this guy, you look at his background, you talk to some cousins, let me find out about, he says he works where? Let me go and do some snooping around there. That's when you're serious about it. But see, too often what happens, too many women are serious today. You meet a man on Monday and you're in love with him Monday night. Oh, come on, stop it.
Oh, boy.
Take some time. Oh, he looks fine. He may look fine, but I tell you what, that may be the worst thing that it is. And stop looking at all the fine. The way he dressed, what he's driving. Just because the brother is not looking the way you want him to look doesn't mean that he might not be a good catch. And so too often we get caught up with these fine ones, all these ones that look like that, and some of those are the greatest perpetrators that there are. Because that perpetrator is not satisfied with himself. He doesn't even love himself. He's been looking for someone to actually satisfy him, but not in the way that you want. And what you would find, a lot of men, Deborah, When they get with the woman, they don't want to share her with no children. They want all by themselves. So you got some that'll be their own children, and they will molest them because they don't want to share that spotlight. Their self-esteem is low.
Yeah, this one case I was reading about, the guy killed the baby because he felt like the little 18-month-old or 8-month-old. I'm trying to find the paper. Well, anyway, whatever. The baby was young. And he killed the baby because he felt like the baby liked his mother more than the baby liked him.
Wow. And
Very
that's,
immature.
That's sick. That's sick. It's sick. Immature is sick. And so when you have something going on like that, there's some years back there was a case where a man was dating this woman, and his father died, and he wanted her to come to the funeral, and she could not go to the funeral. She couldn't get off from work. So he never got over it. And what we find out, men have a lot more difficulty, not all men, so we don't want to generalize. I don't want all the men writing and calling everything, so we know there are many, many men who have difficulty forgiving and letting stuff go. Now, women too, but women have more of a way of getting it back at that man. But this man found himself where he just could not let it go that she didn't go to his dad's funeral. So he married her, and he had the plan already mapped out. She got pregnant, carried that baby for 9 months and had the baby, and left the baby with him. And when she came home one day, he had murdered the baby, and she couldn't believe it. And he said to her, now you know what it feels like to lose somebody you love.
What?
Yes. This is a true story. It's all in the national news.
Wow. I can't even, I have nothing to say to that. Well, a question has come up in the chat room concerning Steve Harvey's book. In one of his chapters, he recommends that if you've already decided that the man is the one, before you introduce him to your children, that is too late. He says that a man needs to be able to see what's going on with the kids, because he can evaluate if he wants to be bothered with the drama of being a father. And that the longer you wait, the more likely he is to think that there's something wrong with the children. Are those things that a woman should be concerned about?
Well, I think, listen to what he's saying. You have decided he's the one. Has he decided that you're the one? You see what I'm saying? And that's often what happens. The woman has decided. Has that man decided that you're the one? So he needs to, at a certain point, he needs to know that you have children, but you don't have to have him around those children. Once you both have decided that each other is the one, then you can begin to invite him over to dinner. But it doesn't mean that he has to stay the night, and you in the room together, you don't know what's going on in the next room. It doesn't mean that you have him babysitting your children. You can begin to observe him around your children. But it has to be when both of you have decided that you're willing and you're ready to make a decision. You still need to take more time. So it's like it's phases. It's let me get to know you, you get to know me phase. We're going to date, we're going to talk. Let me get to know more about you, you get to know more about me phase. Then we come in, and then let's see how you interact with my children phase. How my children interact with you phase, and begin to also listen to those children. Now, there are going to be some children who are going to try to triangulate and call you, play you against him and him against you, both ends against the middle. There are going to be those. But then there are going to be those children who are going to be serious and be able to say, you know what, Mama, the way he looked at me, or he said this to me, he said that to me. And so you have to be realistic. And then we have to be careful of trying to push these children off on these men, just because we want them to have a father. Everybody, the same way every mama is not a mother, every daddy is not a father. And if he's not that child's biological, the chances of him being that father are less likely. There are some good men who can be great fathers to those children, but you need to ascertain that from the onset. Does this man want to really be with your child? Does he really want to be with you?
Or better yet, what reason does he want to be with your child?
Right.
What's the motivation?
What's the motivation? Why does he want to be there? Why does he want to babysit? You still have to be careful. You have to be cautious. Even if you marry a man and he's the biological one, you don't need to be looking back over your shoulders. You don't need to have to worry about all those things. And if you're in a situation that you've got to keep your eye on that man all the time with your children, you don't need to be in it, because you can't watch those children 24/7. And
That's
then
right.
I've had cases where women have known that stepdad or that dad has molested that child, had sex with that child, and mama stays with them. How do you sleep with a man and have sex and let him enter you when you know that he's entered your child and had sex with your child or molested you? How do you go on and then have other babies by him? You must be out of your mind.
I was wondering about that because I don't understand how they do it, because I think if that was my man, he would have to be missing, and they would be like, "What happened to your husband?" I don't know, Well, and if you find him, tell me what happened, because I don't know what happened to him.
Well, there was a case in Florida some years ago, and this woman had a newborn, and she left the biological father to babysit the baby. And when she came back, the dad was telling her that the baby had a high temperature. And he was saying, I don't know what's going on with the baby. And he said the baby would not take the milk, the formula. All the bottles still in the refrigerator. So she said, well, you just stay here. She suspected something. And so it had to be, and this is true. This is a true story. Evidently, she didn't trust this man from the onset and realized that. And see, a lot of times women believe we have children, that's going to make the situation better or make it different. It doesn't. Makes it worse sometimes. And it's not the children who make it worse, it's the fact that you all went together on the same page in the beginning. She goes to the hospital, rushes this baby to the hospital. And Deborah, this is no lie. When they couldn't find out what was going on with the baby, why the baby's temperature was so high, they pumped the baby's stomach, and he was full of semen.
Oh.
And she told them, asked them, can you just hold the baby here at the hospital? Just hold the baby. She went home and she killed him. And the trial went on. She did. She was exonerated. They didn't hold her after that. But he actually, instead of giving the baby his bottle, he was allowing the baby to have oral sex on him. This was a small newborn baby, and he was ejaculating in the baby, and the baby was swallowing sperm all day long.
Oh my God!
And so, and so here's a child who couldn't talk, but thank God, by the baby getting ill, she would have never known what was going on.
Yeah, see, that would have been me. Yeah, you know what? Hold that thought. I'll be right back. Because you got to die.
Right.
There's no rehabilitation for you. You're out of here. You're out of here. That's it for you. Say your prayers. You're gone. That's just some sick. There's nobody that can be that sick and need to even exist on the planet. I'm sorry. You just really don't.
Yeah, that's sick. That's sick. That's sick. And so here again, we have to begin to look at, and I say to men too, you have a teenage son or you have a child and you marry a woman and you begin to look at, why does she always want to be in the room with your son? Why is she out here trying to, touch your son in ways that she should not be touching him? Something is wrong with that picture. She doesn't need to be having this son laying all over her lap and all that. My mother used to say, an erect penis has no conscience. So what's going to happen when she gets him all riled up, gets him all stimulated and things like that? There's going to be release, and then at that age, you got those young boys, and sometimes not even teenagers, adolescents. They get riled up like that. They want to release. And so what is she doing? You still have to be careful. Boys need to be told, too. Don't let anybody bother you that way. And we've got to stop believing that girls need to be protected and boys can protect themselves. No, they have to be protected, too.
There's a case that was in the news last week right here in Livermore, not too far from where I live, where this wealthy woman, well-to-do, husband was a dentist right here in Livermore, big practice, very, very middle-class, upper-middle-class family. This chick, bored housewife, I guess, I don't know, she was luring young men, 13 to 16 years old, to her home with promises of video games and all this kind of thing. And she's giving them these toys in exchange for sex. And, they're 13, 14, 15 years old. And this is a grown woman, like 40-something years old. So, so the whole family scandalized. They left town. They moved.
Wow, they should have left town. But the thing about it is, when you look at something like that, she needs to be put somewhere.
There's something wrong with her.
Yeah, because when you do something like that to a young man or young lady, it's the emotional and psychological damage, because those people begin to look at themselves as being dirty. They carry the guilt. It really bothers them. They never get over it. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is there. Depressive disorders, those sorts of things like that. Sometimes you have aberrant behaviors where they begin to act out and they begin to have antisocial behaviors. All of those things can come about when a person has been violated and someone has taken advantage of them, and they don't understand what's really going on, and they don't understand, why would someone do this to me? Why would someone, take advantage of me like that? It really has an effect on them that's very detrimental, negative, and it resonates and it goes into their future, and it affects their future relationships.
Well, give me an idea of say a woman is dating a guy and she suspects that there's some inappropriate behavior going on with her children. What should she do?
Well, I think most certainly the first thing she needs to do is to talk with that child and give that child permission to be honest, give that child permission to tell the truth, and just let that child know that I'm here for you. You have nothing to be afraid of. You have nothing to fear. I'm not going to blame you. Whatever's going on, it's just something going on. You can tell me. And then she most certainly needs to go to the authorities. She needs to go to the police. She needs to file charges. She needs to fill out a police report. And the other thing is even to begin to watch it. If she doesn't have enough evidence, she most certainly needs to make sure that she collects enough evidence. She needs to make sure that she has, because oftentimes police don't want to do anything unless there is evidence. And if it's a girl, 9 times out of 10, they're going to think that the child is probably sexually active. If they're sexually active with another teen, that has nothing to do and does not give that adult permission to take advantage of that child. But she needs, short of hurting that man or killing him, we don't recommend doing those sorts of things like that. But I do know when you find something like that is going on, the first thing that comes about, it's almost like going through the stages of grief. There's a denial, there's a bargaining, all those things that come about, and there's that whole anger that comes about. So before you do something, and then family members, sometimes you have to be very careful of telling family members or telling the biological father, because a lot of times what will happen, Deborah, that biological father hears something. Either he's going to blame mom, you shouldn't have gotten with this man, or he's become so angry that he'll come out and do something. But get with the proper authorities. Go to your pastor to help allay some of their fears. And really need to get some therapy for that child. Get some therapy for mom also. And give her permission to recognize that, hey, either you were chosen by this guy and it was the wrong choice, or you chose him as the wrong choice, but it doesn't mean that you have to beat yourself up. You have to land in and wallow. The same with men. If this were to happen with a man with his son or his daughter and the woman is the pedophile, get to the authorities. Don't beat her half to death. Don't kill her, those things like that, because then we got another problem. And so that child would be there. There's a reason not with the biological, or if you don't know where that biological father is or mother is, the reason they're staying with you is because you have been endowed with the responsibility of taking care of that child, and they need to have you in their life. They don't need to lose you.
Well, I wanted to know, too, okay, so we know what to do, ladies. If you follow Dr. Joyce's recommendations, if your child comes to you with that accusation. Now, as far as making, an investigation to see what has happened to the child and get medical verification, file legal charges, whatever, what's the next step after that? After speaking to your child, getting the story, then what do they do?
There are rape crisis centers that one can go to, and if they go to the police, most cities do have victim witness programs and victims assistance program where they can actually get someone who provides psychotherapy with that child, with the family, expenses that have to be put out for going to court, back and forth, transportation, and the like. That's the major thing. Getting with a professional, a psychotherapist who is licensed and has experience in dealing with victims of crime, domestic violence, rape, incest, molestations, and the like, who can help them to be able to work through those emotions, work through those feelings, begin to rechannel them into positive things so that they're not actually caught up with all the negativity from what took place with that molestation. Because if it's not dealt with then, either you do something now or you're going to pay dearly later. And that child will begin to act out later. Sometimes they act out right then and there. So it doesn't even wait until later. But oftentimes, if it's not dealt with when it happens, that child is going to act it out then, or to manifest into adulthood, and they wonder why am I not able to have relationships, positive, healthy relationships that last? Because that thing haunts them. It's one of those latent issues that until it's dealt with, it will haunt them. It bothers them. They carry guilt. They carry pain. They're depressed. They're angry. And they start doing other things to cover up, or they become promiscuous. They start just having sex with anybody because of the fact that they see themselves as dirty, they see themselves as not worthy, they see themselves as nasty, and they don't want to, they don't believe that they deserve to be with anybody. That's deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've often wondered, because I heard statistics that said that, 1 out of 4 girls is, raped or sexually molested before the age of 18. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that for a minute. I think it's like 3.5 out of 4.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a lot more. And see, that's reported. That's like unemployment. They say how many people are unemployed. You only know the ones who apply for unemployment.
Right.
Same thing with people who are molested. I have clients, out of the 20-something years I've been practicing and speaking and training and on the road talking with people, there are so many women who have never said anything to anyone. And they're bearing the burden of being molested by, as the woman who called in earlier, a family member. Sometimes it was, and most often it was mom's husband or someone that they brought into the house. So these are not usually strangers. And so what happens later in life, she never told anybody. But now as an adult, she's wondering why she's so depressed. She's wondering why she doesn't want to have sex with her husband. She's wondering why, I just can't relate to anyone. I don't want this man touching me. I don't want him coming behind me when I'm in the bed. I don't want him sneaking in the room with me. Don't wake me out of my sleep to have sex. Those sorts of things like that, because something else happened. And so we see the symptoms, Deborah, but until we go back and understand how did they get there in the first place, you're going to still have some problems. And she goes from man to man. Or, the husband is miserable and say, well, I can't get to her. I'm doing everything I can for her. And she doesn't want to act right. And then you got men who have been molested. It's even worse because a lot of the men struggle with, am I gay? Am I straight? Am I gay? Or I find myself attracted to men. I find myself going through this because this is what happened to me. And he couldn't tell it because you know what? In America, we don't give people permission to just have their own sexuality, be gay. We don't get, especially in the black community, we want to castigate people because that's what they're choosing to do. Well, what are you going to do? Burn up everybody and kill them? That's crazy. And then we look at if a guy comes and says he's been molested, then something must be wrong with him. Listen, people, hear it. Churches, awaken. This happens every day. And then we want to shut people up. You can't talk about it. You can't say anything about it. Pretend it didn't happen. And that's why we have people out here crazy today because of the fact no one gives them permission to admit this is what happened. The truth. They're living a lie.
Wow. Well, listeners, you got about 5 more minutes, 6 more minutes to call into the show to share your story of dealing with a pedophile, whether it was your own children you were protecting them from, a victimization that you experienced. You can be completely anonymous. We only say the first 3 numbers of the phone number. You can identify yourself by any name you choose. The number to call is 347-327-9215. Press 1. If you want to be on the air, you need to press 1 on your keypad. Otherwise, I will assume you're just listening to the show over the phone. I see a lot of phone lines here on the switchboard, but I'm just assuming all of you are just listening until you press 1, and then I will pick up your call. Well, Dr. Joyce, this is really kind of this was a tough show. I mean, I felt like it was something that I needed to do because of, like I said, the high number of single-parent homes in the black community and the stories I keep hearing from women. Just about everybody has a story of how they've been molested by at least one person. Some women, more than one person over the course of their lifetime. So then I'm looking at the statistics. I'm like, these can't be right. 1 out of 4. It's like I said, I think it's more like 3.5 out of 4 because of the fact that some women have been victimized by more than one perpetrator over their lifetime. So what, does that count as one, or does each incident count as one?
Right. And how many times are they saying anything to anyone about it? Another thing, Deborah, I want to say, one of the places that really bothers me is that the victimization of people in the church, by people who are in the church, no matter if it's a pastor, if it's the musician, if it's a deacon, if it's a deaconess, or whomever it is, and we think that it's okay. And so people are sworn to silence because of the fear of being put to doom and damnation. And I don't care who it is, where it is, no one has the right to victimize your child. And we look at the Catholic Church, that was a prime example of what was happening to children. And when they were going to catechism and places like that. I don't care what's going on. Bible school and Bible study is not meant for them to be studying anything else but the Bible. When they go to Sunday school, that's what it's supposed to be about. And to utilize God and Jesus in effort to cover up their own personal stuff to be able to take advantage of somebody, that's a sin in itself.
Well, I'm with you on that. I know you heard about my Black Church article when I talked about them keeping black women single and lonely.
Yes.
It's been all over the internet,
yes.
much to my shock and surprise. But that is definitely another point that I can look at.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think we have to look at it. We have to look at the realities of what's not being discussed in our churches, what's being said to black single women, how they treated or mistreated or maltreated in the process. This whole thing about the role that they play and their own need, again, that neediness that's just written on their forehead, a big N on their forehead when they walk out there, that they're so desperate to be with somebody, they wind up with anybody who turns out to be nobody. It's like, ladies, get a grip. And if they're that desperate and you got to have someone and you're not sure of that man, go to the toy store. Go to the toy store and do yourself. Do what you need to do. But stop putting your children at risk. Stop putting yourself at risk. And just because a person in the church doesn't mean that he is of God or from God. The devil goes to church.
Wow. And I just don't really know, what to say here to make women more aware of these men. It's like they fall in love, or they imagine themselves to be in love, and they just, all their child protective feelings, mechanisms seem to go out the window, and they don't seem to think that this guy should be looked at with a question mark. He shouldn't be given a pass just because you like him. Right. You don't know beans about this dude. I'm not saying he has to be a bad guy, but slow down. Give yourself a chance to know him.
Take your time. I'm going to be speaking in Rochester, New York, next month in the 5 steps to a healthy relationship, what you can do in order to get what you want and have what you need. The bottom line is that you do, and that's critical, Deborah. And we have to stress it. Just women, take your time. I just believe that that's what's meant for you is there. I have a frame, and this is Dr. Joyce's phrase, and I'm looking at it. I sit here and I can look at it every day, and it said, that which is for me will wait for me. Simply put, if it's for me, if it's a man, if it's money, if it's a job, if it's an opportunity, if it's a radio, whatever it is, it's going to wait for me. And too often what we believe as women is that if I don't catch it now, it'll go away. Open your hand sometimes and let that bird fly away. And if it's meant, it'll come right back to your hand. And it's helping women. Get some therapy. Get some help. Get rid of some of that baggage. Men, too, now. Get some help. Get rid of some of that baggage. And stop getting out of a situation and to another situation. I say this all the time, Deborah. There's a difference between a relationship and a situation. Stop getting out of these situations that are not relationships. And when that one doesn't work out, on last month you had Eddie in your child's life. That was in January. In February, Eddie left you and didn't work out. You're crying and brooding in the children's and Mark. For every month you got a name by the beginning of the letter of that month. Then April you got Aaron. And then, you know, in June, you got Jack. In July, you got John. Oh, come on. Get a grip. Let it go. And
I'm with you.
And then what gets me, they tell these children this is their uncle. Why would you want to be sleeping with their uncle? So you're confusing them right there, too. So what the child says, well, if mama can sleep with uncle, then maybe uncle can sleep with me. You see what I'm saying? It confuses me.
I do. Well, Dr. Joyce, it's about that time, but I want to give you a minute to, tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay. I can be reached at Joyce at drjoyce.com. That's Joyce at DOCTOR Joyce.com. Visit my website at www.drjoyce.com, www.doctorjoyce.com, 770-808-6570, 770-808-6570.
Dr. Joyce, thank you so much for coming through and helping me with this very, very tough topic. I will be in touch again very soon.
Thanks, Deborah, for having me.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, everyone. That was a very tough subject, and we made it through. We're on the other side. Please, if you know some single moms dating guys and you think that they need a little guidance on